maid's daughter gave her last $5 to a stranded stranger, unaware she was helping a lost billionaire. She never expected that one bus ride would end with a shocking revelation. No pay, no ride. The driver's command was brutal, leaving a confused, elderly woman shivering on the curb. 12-year-old Betsy froze. In her pocket sat $5, her family's entire emergency fund, essential for their survival. Using it meant no milk for dinner, but watching this cruelty felt worse. With shaking hands, Betsy jammed her foot in the door and dropped her last coins into the box. She didn't know she was saving a billionaire. She only knew she couldn't look away. A single tarnished quarter can weigh more than a bar of gold when it is all you have left. 12-year-old Betsy Miller stood on the corner of the wealthiest street in town, clutching a silver dog tag in one hand and her bus fare in the other. She watched the sleek cars glide by, wondering if anyone inside them ever worried about how they would get home. The autumn wind in Fairview was different than the wind in the East End. Here, on the wide avenues lined with oak trees and manicured hedges, the breeze smelled of burning fireplaces and expensive polished leather. It rustled through the copper leaves with a gentle whisper, polite and reserved. In the East End, where Betsy lived, the wind had teeth. It howled through cracks in the window frames and carried the scent of diesel fumes and damp concrete. Betsy tightened her grip on the plastic grocery bag she carried. Inside were her mother's work clothes, a black uniform and a white apron that smelled faintly of lemon polish and bleach. Her mother, Linda, was still inside the sprawling brick mansion behind the iron gates, finishing the floors. Linda had hurt her back the week before, a dull ache that turned into a sharp spasms by the afternoon. So, Betsy had come after school, sneaking in through the service entrance to scrub the baseboards and dust the high shelves while her mother handled the heavy vacuuming. It was a secret arrangement. The homeowners, the Harrisons, did not like children. They especially did not like the children of the help, seen or heard. Betsy adjusted her thin denim jacket. She was small for 12, with blonde hair that she kept braided tight against her scalp to keep it out of her face. Her eyes were a pale, watchful blue, the kind of eyes that saw everything but expected nothing. Against her chest, hidden beneath her t-shirt, lay the cold metal of her grandfather's dog tags. They were her talisman. Sergeant William Miller, the medal read. A hero from a war everyone respected, even if they had forgotten his family. She checked the time on the old digital watch her mother had given her. The number 40 bus was due in 5 minutes. If she missed it, she would have to walk 4 miles in the dark. She reached the bus stop, a lonely bench situated under a flickering street lamp at the edge of the affluent district. It was the borderline. On one side, the mansions stood tall and proud. On the other, the road dipped down toward the highway that led to the factories and the row houses. Betsy sat on the edge of the bench. She wasn't alone. Sitting on the far end was an older woman. She looked out of place, like a piece of fine china left out in a storm. The woman wore a coat that looked like it had once been camel hair, but it was smudged with dirt on the sleeve. Her white hair was pinned up, though several strands had escaped and blew across her forehead. She sat with a rigid posture, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Betsy studied her from the corner of her eye. The woman didn't look like the usual people who waited for the number 40. The usual crowd consisted of tired nurses, construction workers covered in drywall dust, and people like Betsy, invisible people. This woman looked like she belonged in one of the houses on the hill, yet here she was, shivering slightly as the temperature dropped. The woman turned her head. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, but clouded with a sudden frantic confusion. She patted her pockets. She looked down at the ground. She checked the empty space on the bench beside her. "Is something wrong, ma'am?" Betsy asked. Her voice was quiet. She had learned long ago that being loud only attracted trouble. The woman looked at Betsy, startled. "My bag," she said. Her voice was refined, clear, but laced with rising panic. "I had a handbag. I placed it right here." Betsy looked around. The sidewalk was empty. "Did you leave it somewhere?" I don't know," the woman admitted, her shoulders sagging. I went for a walk. The gardens were so lovely, and I just kept walking. I wanted to see the leaves turn. I must have set it down when I rested on the stone wall 3 blocks back. She let out a breath that was more of a shudder. Oh dear, my phone, my wallet. Do you want me to run back and check? Betsy offered, standing up. No, no, the woman said quickly, waving a hand. I can't send a child. Besides, my legs. They are done for the day. I just need to get back. She paused, looking at the street sign. I am not entirely sure where back is from here. Before Betsy could answer, the heavy rumble of a diesel engine shook the pavement. The number 40 bus rounded the corner, its brakes screeching like a wounded animal. It was a hulking machine, scarred with rust and streaked with city grime. The doors hissed open. The driver, a man with a thick neck and eyes that looked like he hadn't slept in a decade, glared down at them. His name was distinct on his badge. Gus. Betsy knew Gus. Gus didn't wait for anyone. Gus didn't smile. Let's go, Gus barked, drumming his fingers on the steering wheel. I'm behind schedule. The older woman stood up, swaying slightly. She approached the steps of the bus with hesitation. She looked up at the driver. Sir, she said, her voice trying to maintain dignity. I seem to have misplaced my purse. If you could just take me to the downtown station, I can contact my... Gus cut her off with a harsh laugh. No pay, no ride. That's the rule, lady. Read the sign. The woman blinked, her face flushing a deep crimson. I am not asking for a handout. I am in distress. I need to make my stops, Gus snapped. He reached for the lever to close the door. You got $3 or you got feet. Choose. The cruelty of it made Betsy's stomach turn. She saw the older woman shrink. It wasn't just embarrassment. It was the shock of being spoken to like she was garbage. It was a look Betsy saw on her mother's face almost every day when the homeowners criticized a spot on a glass table. The woman stepped back onto the curb, her head bowing. I see, she whispered. I apologize for the delay. Gus snorted and started to pull the lever. Wait! Betsy's voice was louder this time. She stepped forward, jamming her foot in the door before it could close. Hey, get your foot out of there, kid, Gus yelled. Betsy didn't move. She reached into the pocket of her jeans. Her fingers brushed the paper bill and the coins. It was her allowance for the week, plus the emergency money her mom made her keep. $5. It was supposed to buy milk and maybe a treat for dinner tonight. She pulled the crumpled bills and coins out. She walked up the steps and dropped the money into the plastic fare box. It clattered loudly. That's for both of us, Betsy said, her chin lifted. She looked Gus in the eye. It was terrifying, but she channeled the stories she heard about her grandfather. He stood his ground. She would too. Gus looked at the money, then at Betsy, then at the older woman. He grunted, annoyed that he couldn't argue with cash. Whatever. Sit down. Don't cause trouble. Betsy turned back to the woman on the curb. She extended a small, callous hand. Come on, ma'am. It's okay. I paid. The woman looked at Betsy's hand as if it were a lifeline thrown into a raging sea. Her eyes, which had been dry, suddenly glistened. She took Betsy's hand. Her skin was soft, papery, and cold. Thank you, she whispered. Betsy helped her up the steep steps. The bus lurched forward before they were even settled, throwing them off balance. Betsy guided the woman to a seat near the middle, away from the back where the rowdier teenagers usually sat, but far enough from the front to avoid Gus's glare. They sat down on the cracked vinyl seats. The bus smelled of old rain and tired people. The woman smoothed her coat, trying to regain her composure, but her hands were trembling. You didn't have to do that, the woman said after a moment. She looked at Betsy with a piercing curiosity. That was your money. It's just money, Betsy said, shrugging, though her mind briefly worried about the milk. My mom says nobody should be left behind, especially not when it's getting dark. The woman stared at her. Your mother sounds like a wise woman. She works hard, Betsy said. She pulled her bag of work clothes onto her lap, hugging it. She says working hard keeps your head straight. The bus hit a pothole, rattling the windows in their frames. The woman winced, grabbing the metal rail in front of her. This world, the noise, the smell, the roughness, was clearly alien to her. I am Eleanor, the woman said, extending her hand again, this time formally. Eleanor Caldwell. Betsy shook it. I'm Betsy. Betsy Miller. Miller, Eleanor repeated, testing the name. A solid name. And tell me, Betsy Miller, why is a 12-year-old girl taking the bus alone at this hour? Where are your parents? My dad died a long time ago, Betsy answered matter-of-factly. And my mom is still working. She cleans the Harrison house up on the hill. I help her sometimes, but I have to get back to start dinner and do homework. Eleanor's eyebrows rose. You help her clean? Shh. Betsy put a finger to her lips, glancing around. I'm not supposed to. The Harrisons don't know. If they found out I was there, Mom could lose her job. They think kids are messy. A shadow passed over Eleanor's face. Her expression hardened, not at Betsy, but at the invisible injustice of the situation. I see. They sound delightful. They pay okay, Betsy said, defending the only lifeline her family had. Mom says we just have to keep our heads down and be grateful. Grateful, Eleanor echoed, the word tasting sour in her mouth. She looked out the window as the manicured lawns of Fairview gave way to the smaller, cramped yards of the transition neighborhoods. It is strange what we are told to be grateful for. Betsy noticed the woman was shivering again. The heating on the bus was broken, blowing only cold air. Without thinking, Betsy unzipped her denim jacket. She wasn't wearing much underneath, just a thin white t-shirt, but she was used to the cold. Here, Betsy said, taking the jacket off. Put this over your legs. It helps. Oh my dear, I couldn't, Eleanor protested, looking at Betsy's thin arms. You'll freeze. I'm fine, Betsy insisted. I'm tough. Grandpa's blood. She draped the jacket over Eleanor's knees. Eleanor touched the denim fabric. She looked at Betsy, really looked at her, past the worn clothes and the tired eyes. She saw the silver dog tags hanging against the white t-shirt. Is that your father's? Eleanor asked, pointing to the tags. My grandfather, Betsy said, her hand instinctively going to the metal. Sergeant William Miller. He was in the war. He saved his whole platoon. He got a medal and everything. Eleanor's breath hitched. She leaned in closer, her blue eyes widening. William Miller? From the 101st? Betsy nodded vigorously. You heard of him? Heard of him? Eleanor's voice dropped to a whisper. The confusion that had plagued her at the bus stop seemed to evaporate, replaced by a sharp, intense clarity. My late husband. He spoke of a Miller.